Test, test, test. Great. Okay, good. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Good morning. I'm just coming to say hello. Hello. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Uh-huh. Which place are you talking about? Little Neck Jewish Center. Oh, uh-huh. Oh, yeah, in Long Island, right? Yeah. We would go every Shabbat. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I like to be early. page 99. Moda ani lifanecha melechai v'kayam shehechazarta Binishmati bechemla rabba emunatecha modani lifanecha ruachai v'kayam shehechazarta Binishmati bechemla rabba emunatecha. Shabbat shalom, boker tov, good morning. We're gonna rise on page 103 for Birkot HaShachar. Sorry. Good exercise, exactly. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sachvi bina lavchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani betzamo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam abisha rumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam atir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzarei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten le'ahev koach. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavir shena meinai utnum hame'ahafapai. Utninu hayom v'choyom lecheinu chesed al rachamim Beinacha beinei koroheinu v'tigmalenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. We're going to turn over to page 113 for Psalm 27 for the days of awe in the month of Elul. And I just want to read this poetic translation written by Rabbi Brant Rosen that was shared with me by Barbara Flexner. And I've read it through a couple times this week, so some of you have heard this before. But I think what it does is translate the words of this psalm into a kind of inner posture of navigating fear and hope. You are my light and my hope. Why should I fear? You are my life and my strength. Why do I tremble? When I contemplate surrender to my dread of the unknown, I hold tight to you, and your strength gives me strength. I only ask one thing of you, just this one thing, that I may be welcome in your house all the days of my life, to dwell in your innermost place beneath the softness of your wings. I seek your shelter when I am racked by hardship and disquiet. From your deepest depths, I will sing hymns to the darkness with openness and love. Guide me in your ways. Lead me down the paths of wholeness and peace. Remind me that no matter how far I may stray, there is always a road to return. Though I don't always see it, I will ever trust in your goodness, right here, right now, in the land of the living. Hold on to your hope and be strong. The season of our return is at hand. We're in the middle of the page with Achat Sha'alti. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota vakesh. Achat Sha'alti meit Adonai ota vakesh. Shivti beveit Adonai kol yemei chayai lachazot benoam Adonai ulevaker beichalo lachazot benoam Adonai ulevaker beichalo. We'll turn to page 121 for Mourner's Kaddish, joining together with our minyan formed here in the room and with those online. We'll say together, those who are mourning and observing yard sites, page 121. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'yomechon u'chayei d'cho beit Yisrael, v'agala u'bizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'elam u'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'miran v'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru amen. We rise together on page 122 for Baruch She'amar. Ay 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 ay. Ay 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 ay. Ay 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 ay. Ay 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. Ay, 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 ay. 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 Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam. Baruch hu. Baruch Hoseh Bereshit. Baruch Omer Ve'yoseh. Baruch Gozer Umikayem. Baruch Mirachem al haaretz. Baruch Mirachem al habriot. Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov Lireyav. Baruch Hayliat V'kayam Lanetzach. Baruch Bodeu Umatil. Baruch Baruch Shemo. Ay, 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 ay. Baruch atah Adonai melech mehulal batishbachot. You can take a seat. I'm going to turn to page 139 to Psalm 148. Hallelujah. 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 Hallelujah, Adonai min hashamayim. Hallelujah, b'meromim. Hallelujah, kol malachav. Hallelujah, kol tzevahav. Hallelujah, shemesh v'yareach. Hallelujah, kol kochvei hor. Hallelujah, shemei hashamayim v'yamayim asher me'al hashamayim. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nivrahu, vayamidam la leolam, chok natan v'lo yavor. Yehallelu et Shem Adonai, ki hu tziva v'nivrahu, vayamidam leolam, chok natan v'lo yavor. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Just join me on that hallelujah. 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 On 141. Hallelu el bekocho, Hallelu birki ahuzo, Hallelu vigvurotav, Hallelu kirov gulo, Hallelu biteka shofar, Hallelu beneva vechinor. Hallelu betofu machol, Hallelu beminim vehugav. Hallelu betzilz shama, Hallelu betzilz letrua, kolan shamati halleluya, Hallelu, Alleluia. Kolan shamati halleluya, Hallelu, Alleluia. Kolan shamati halleluya, Hallelu, Alleluia. Hallelujah. 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 The spiritual community in Jerusalem that wrote that melody is called Nava Tehillah, and they meet in a synagogue basement just off in Baca, off of Emek Rephaim. And their practice is to have all of their prayer leaders come together about an hour before the service begins, not really for a rehearsal, but to warm up the space, to sing and fill the room with song, so that by the time the rest of the daveners get there at 6:30, 7 p.m., whenever it is, they're walking into something that feels alive. And I can tell, like, something's happening here. There's an energy here. I don't know what it is, but something's happening. And they call those prayer leaders, they call them Levi'im, they call them Levites, just like in the ancient temple. They were the musicians in the temple. And it's interesting because we read about the Levites in this Parsha, Shoftim. They're going to be at the very beginning of what we read today. They didn't have a home. They didn't have land in ancient Eretz Yisrael. They were the one tribe that wasn't given a permanent home to rest in. And so they were somewhat itinerant, and they would depend on the care of the other tribes around them in order to be nourished and sustained. But I think about actually all of us who are here before 10 a.m. as those Levi'im. And I especially think about that as more and more people begin to come in slowly. It's sort of dependent on the people who get here early to create the energy for others to walk into and feel like, oh, there's something happening here. The room feels alive. Prayer is happening. Connection is happening. Relationships are happening. And so this is all by way of just expressing my gratitude for everybody who comes early. So I'm not here alone. So we're going to turn over to 143, to Az Yashir, to the Song of the Sea. I invite you to rise here. Az Yashir Moshe Uvenei Yisrael et Hashira Zod Ladonai Vayomru Lemor Ashir Ladonai Ki Gaoga Sus V'rachvo Ramavayam Ozi v'zimrat ya vayehi li lishua Zeli v'yanvehu Elohei aviva hamromeinu ay nay nay and ay day day and ay day and ay day ay day day and ay and ay day ay day day and ay day day and ay day and ay day ay and ay and I and I Adonai Himlo Leolam Vaed Adonai Himlo Leolam Vaed. You can be seated. Do one of you want to come up and do harmonies for Nishmat? Okay. We're on 145. Thanks. Nishmat kol chai tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Nishmat kol chai Tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu Ay day ay day ay day ay day ay day ay day ay oh ay ay day 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 ay ay oh ay 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 oh ay 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 oh. We're at the bottom of 146. Barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol kirabai et shem kodsho barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol kravai et shem kodsho ay day day ay day ay day ay day ay day ay oh ay day day ay ay oh ay 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 oh ay 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 oh. Thank you. We're on 147. Ha'el b'tatzmot zecha, Hagadol b'chlot shemacha, Hagibor lanetzach v'nora b'norotecha, Hamelech hayoshev Al Kiseram Venisa. I just want to say one word before we begin Shacharit this morning. I listened to a podcast last week, an interview with someone who writes about technology. His name is Michael Sakasis. And he came up with 41 questions that he says we should be asking about our technologies to inquire of their moral value. Normally, the questions we ask about technology or the reasons why technologies are created in the first place is not thinking about morality at all. It's thinking about how do we make life easier? How can we reduce friction between ourselves and an act that we're trying to do? So, Apple Pay on your phone, you can buy something with just pushing your fingerprint on a button, or anything, a clock, enables people to come together at the same time rather than just sort of looking at the sun and guessing. All of these things are technologies, but we don't often inquire, what do they turn us into as human beings? What is their moral value? And so some of the questions, I'm not going to read all 41 of them, but some of the questions he asks are, what sort of person will the use of this technology make of me? What habits will the use of this technology instill? What will the use of this technology encourage me to notice? And what will the use of this technology encourage me to ignore? There are many more. But even as I'm asking these questions, you might be thinking of a particular technology in mind already. Your phone, great example, or any social media app. And without having to think too hard, you can already sort of feel your way into an answer to some of those questions. What are the things that I'm inclined to notice more because of whatever technology it is? What are the things I'm inclined to notice? And so I actually took these questions and I printed them out because I wanted to apply them to our spiritual technologies as well. Because prayer, just as much as any device, is its own kind of technology. It's encouraging us to become people who are attuned to the things that we normally ignore, the beauty of our world and the pain of our world, and to open our eyes a little bit more and our hearts a little bit more to each other. But I think we forget that that's what their purpose is, and they don't operate, prayer doesn't operate as that kind of technology without intention. And so as we're going into Shacharit this morning, I'm going to try to refrain from talking throughout the course of Shacharit so we can really enter into it. I want to invite you to just to inquire even, to not really take my word for it, but to ask, okay, what is this technology encouraging me to notice in the world? What is it encouraging me to ignore, and what is it encouraging me to notice? And I would love to hear later on your thoughts. So we're going to enter in on page 147 with Shulchan Ad. Shulchan Ad Maharom V'Karo Shemo V'Chatur Radinu Tzadikim Baronai Laisharim Nava Tehillah Befi Sharim Titalal Uvdivrei Tzadikim Titbarach Uvilshon Chasidim Titromam Uvekerev Kedoshim Titkarash Uvamakalot Rivavot Amcha Beit Yisrael. Shekein Chovat Kol HaYitzurim Lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu V'Le'avotenu V'Imotenu להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, לברך ולקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ.
Remember, just maybe wait
שיר ושבחה
5 seconds or
הלל
so
וזמרה.
between clicking that to
ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל להודות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך מלכי העולמים. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביומכון, ובחיי דכו בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולמי המאיה. יתברך וישתבח, ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי קודשה בריחו. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בעלמה, ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. נא לשבת. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר אור ובורא חושך, עושה שלום ובורא את הכל. אין קרקך בין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומדומה לך. אין קרקך אדוני אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס בלתך גואלנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. We're on 151. I lost it. Hold on. El Adon al kol hamasim baruch umvorach befikon neshama kolo betuvo maleolam dahatut vuna sovevimoto hamika al chayot hakodesh v'nedar bechavod al merkava זכו מלכות ומישור לפני חיסו חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו טובים מאורות שברא אלוהים יצרם בדעת בבינה ובהשכל כוח ובורא נתם בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תיבה לאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה זיום בכל העולם שמחים בצאתם וששים בבוא עמוסים ביים הרצון קונם פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמו צולה ורינה לזכר מלכותו קרא לשמש ויזרח אורה והתקין צורת הלבנה שבח נותנים לו כל צבא אהרון תפארת וגדולה שרפים ויופנים וחיות הקודש. 152 ליל אשר שבת מכל המעשים. תתברך מושנו על שבח מעשה ידיך ועל מאורי שעשית יפרוך הסלע. תתברך צורנו מלכנו וגואלנו בורא קדושים. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים בהמה ויראה רצון קונם, וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה ובתורה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים, ופרים ומעריצים, ומקדישים וממליכים. השם המלך הגדול והנורא קדוש הוא, וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, בספרה ברורה בנימה קדושה, כולם כאחד, עונים ואומרים ביראה. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלך כל הארץ כבודו. והאופנים וחיות הקודש, ורעש גדול מתנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים. ליל ברוך נמוהיתנו. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה בראשית כאמור. לעושה יורים גדולים כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. Give me one moment. Ahava Rabbav Tanu Adonai Eloheinu Chem Lagidol Avitera Chamalta Aleinu Avinu Malkeinu Bavur Avotenu Shebarchu Becha Avinu Malkeinu ותלמדם חוקי חיים, כן תכוננו תלמדנו, הרחמן, המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל לשמוע, ללמוד וללמד, לשמור ולעשות.
ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך. לא נבוש לעולם ועד, לא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קדשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בשועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות, קוממיות לארצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלה באמת, להודות לך וליחדך, וליחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה אם שמעו תשמעו אל מצוותי אשר אנוכי מצווה. למען ירבו ימיכם וימי מימיכם האדמה אשר נשבעת לאבותיכם, לתת להם כימי השמיים על הארץ. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר El b'nei Yisrael b'yor marta aleihem v'yasu lehem tzitzit al kanfei b'gdeihem g'dorotam b'natnu al tzitzit akanaf b'til techelet v'haya lachem l'tzitzit uritem oto uzkartem ekol mitzvot Adonai v'asitem otam v'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei nechem asher etem zonim achareihem למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת ויציב לכם וקיים ישר Emet Eloheinu Malkeinu Tzur Yaakov Magen Nishenu L'dor V'dahu Kayam U'Shmo Kayam V'chiso Nachonu Malchoto Ve'emunato Lad Kayamet U'devarav Chayim V'Kayim V'Nechem V'Nechem Adim La'al Olmei Olamim Avotenu V'Imotenu V'Elenu Kol Emet shatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Elahei avotenu v'imotenu Malkeinu melech avotenu v'imotenu Goel aleinu goel avotenu v'imotenu Yotzreinu shor yeshuotenu Poreinu matzilu me'olam shemecha Ein Elohim zulatecha Ezra avotenu v'imotenu Atahu me'olam Mitzrayim.
Tehilot Lel Elyon Baruch Hu Umvorach Moshe Miriam Uvnei Israel Lachanu Shira B'simcha Rabba V'amru Chulav Mi chamocha bailim Adonai Mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh Norati lot Osef eleh Shira chadasha shibchu geulim Leshimcha sfatayam yachad kulam Hodu v'imlichu ve'amru Adonai imlo leolam ba'ed Tzur Yisrael Kuma b'ezrat Yisrael Uvtei Hinumecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael Go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, V'zocher chastei avot ve'imahot Umevi goel livnei v'nehem Leman shemo v'ahava Ozer foked Moshiach u'magen Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ufokei tzara. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, mechaye metim ata rab lehoshia, morid hatal. Mechakel chaim bechesed, mechaye mehitim berachamim rabim, somech noflim berofech cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha bal gevurot, umito melach, melech memid, umechaye, Matzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lachayot metim, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hametim. Nikadesh et shimcha b'olam, kishem shemachti shomoto b'shmei marom, kakatuv v'yanviacha, v'karazel zeh v'yamar. Kadosh, 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 Adonai tzavot, melech ol haaretz kivodo. Az b'kol rash gadol, adir v'chazak mashmiim kol, midnasim liumat serafim, liumatam baruch yomeru. Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Mimkomcha malkeinu tofia v'timlocha leinu כי מחכים אנחנו לך, מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים עדי עדי בינינו תיראנה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא תברך יורתה וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון ובימיכון ובחייך בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעלם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי קודשה. לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תשבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן בימה וימרו. תקבל צלעות הון ובת הון לכל ישראל, קודם עוון וישמעיה וימרו. יהי שלום רב מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו והכל ישראל וימרו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו והכל ישראל, והכל יושבי תבל וימרו. Amen. Good Shabbos. Good morning. So I asked before Shacharit, what is it that prayer encourages you to notice more? And what I noticed more was that none of us can do this work alone. And so thank you to Stan. I don't know where he went, but Stan for stepping in, and for Rini for her cough drops. Thank you. Where'd she go? There she is. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to turn to the Torah service on page 168. And I sent an email out before Shabbos that you can read on your own time if you haven't yet, but I mentioned how in sort of the natural course of events with any practice that we do, with any kind of regularity, the fixed, rigid parts of it will start to set in over time. And if we don't occasionally do a little changing, even of the most sacred things, it will get so rigid that it'll become brittle and hard and no longer able to sustain kavanah in prayer. And so I want to try a different melody for the taking out of the Torah this morning. This is a melody that I learned in Los Angeles when I used to go daven at a community called Ikar. And then my community in Chicago, Mishkan, also adopted it. And it just has a little bit of a different feel. Some of you may recognize this melody, some of you may not. When we get to the Shema, we're going to do the Shema just like as we always do in that moment when we take the Torah out. But leading up to it, it'll feel a little different. So encourage you as you pick up on the melody to join in. We're on 168. Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kimasecha malchutcha malchut kol olamim umemshacha bechol dor vador Adonai melech Adonai melech Adonai imloch leolam vaed Adonai os le'ama yitain Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Av harachamim heitiv avertzoncha et Zion Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim Ki v'cha levad batachnu Melech Ram v'nisa Adon olamim Yanai-nai-nai-nai 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 Anai-nai-nai Adai-dai-dai-dai Anai-dai-dai-dai Adai-dai-dai-dai Ai-dai-dai-dai Adai-dai-dai-dai Ai-dai-dai-dai-dai-dai-dai. We rise as the ark is opened. Vayi bin soarod, vayomer Moshe. Kuma Adonai v'afutzu oivecha v'anusu misanecha mipanecha ki mitzion Tetzei Torah Udvar Adonai Mirushalayim Ai Baruch Shenatan Torah Le'amo Israel Bikdushato Yai-dai-dai Ai-ai-ai-dai-dai Ai-ai-dai-dai-dai Ai-dai-dai-dai-ai-dai-dai Ai-ai-dai-dai-dai-do Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo L'Adonai iti uneromema shemo yachdav lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanitzach v'hahod kicho b'shamayim u'v'haaretz lecha Adonai mamlacha v'yami naseh lechol lerosh romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'hishtachau lehadam raglav kadoshu romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'hishtachau lehar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Adonai I da 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 na 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 na. I da 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 na da 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 na. I da 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 na I da 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 da. You may be seated. Okay. So, Parshat Shoftim, which we're reading this morning, happens to be my bat mitzvah parsha. Yes, very sweet. The year 2000. I learned this week that this was also the bar mitzvah parsha for Linda Lippett's son, Danny, who passed away earlier this year. And so I invited Linda to, it was total, you could call it coincidence, you could call it beshert, whatnot, but I invited Linda to give a Devar Torah already during this time. I'm inviting a couple of people to share words of Torah during the month of Elul. And then she informed me that it was Danny's bar mitzvah anniversary, and so she's going to share some of the words that he gave at his bar mitzvah. And so we'll open this way, and then I'll introduce us to the reading that we're going to do this morning. And she'll share just a little context and introduction.
Danny's dad is now in memory care, and he was always the one who filled out albums. If it was up to me, they'd all be in boxes somewhere. But I've been bringing these albums one at a time, there are about 30 of them, to help his memory and things that we can talk about. And last week, when I opened this particular album, there was Danny's, whoops! No, that wasn't what was there. What there was Danny's handwritten Devar Torah from his bar mitzvah in 1989. And I think in terms of justice, this was the time when we were trying to get the Soviet Jews out, and we were pairing our children with a particular Jew refusnik. And so I'm going to share with you what Danny said in 1989. And this is all his. I did not sit there and tell him what to write. I promise. Shoftim is about the laws, justice, and what is right. Today, myself and many other children have chosen to twin their bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah with children in the Soviet Union who are unable to be bar or bat mitzvah because they are not allowed to exercise their Jewish religion. We sent them letters explaining about our religion and our bat and bat mitzvahs, but there are many Jewish children in our own country who are also unable to have a bar or bat mitzvah. Many times, this is because they are developmentally delayed or maybe autistic, and they are unable to learn the prayers necessary for a bar or bat mitzvah ceremony. I know a boy named Arthur. He is autistic. Arthur was born on the exact same day as me and would most likely be having his bar mitzvah today. Arthur is a kind, handsome boy, but has serious brain disorder, giving him less ability to learn. My Russian twin, Yaakov Goldman, recently left the Soviet Union and moved to Israel. Now he's able to practice Judaism and be a bar mitzvah. Arthur will never be a bar mitzvah. He cannot just leave his autism or walk away from it. He is autistic and always will be. Arthur will probably never have a real girlfriend or go on a real date, but Arthur is still a Jew, physically and in spirit, and he shares the same want and need to be a bar mitzvah. I have been blessed with a brain that functions properly and will do my best to use it to its full extent. Therefore, I am also in spirit twinning my bar mitzvah with Arthur and with all other autistic and delayed children in the world. Many of you have also been blessed with properly functioning brains and are obligated to use them. Please use this blessing to make the world a better place for all the delayed and autistic children like Arthur in this world. Only then will there be true justice. So that's my Dan.
Yesher koach. Yeh zichrono livracha. May his memory be a blessing to you now and always. Thank you, Linda. That was really powerful, and we can really even track, how much the world has grown and expanded since the late 80s. I imagine were he giving that Devar Torah today, he would be able to look out at the world of Jewish inclusion and efforts to bring everyone in and have them access Judaism regardless of their ability, regardless of disability. I think since the 80s, that has really become a tremendous part of the Jewish community with still a long way to go. So thank you. So we're going to continue and read from the second triennial this morning. At first glance, the section that we're about to read contains a lot of disparate laws that seem to have no connection to one another whatsoever. We're going to read about the Levite and how they are to be sustained since they don't have any land or fields to sustain them on their own. We're going to read about true and false prophets, and we're going to read about the 3 cities of refuge. And I actually want to focus on really none of these ideas specifically, but we're going to take some time actually before the Haftarah and discuss some of the themes that come up in the Haftarah. But as I was reviewing it this morning, I sort of found this subtle thread that extends through everything we're about to read, and that is all of these encounters, all of these laws and scenarios have to do with people who are in transitioning or liminal states. So the Levite is in a constant state of limbo, interestingly, because he doesn't have a permanent home. And so the Parsha talks about how he's going to be moving from place to place to place to do the leadership that he is called to do. The situation with the prophet and isn't speaking about a particular person in a transitioning state, but it speaks to our experience of anxiety and uncertainty when we don't know what's going to happen next, and we're looking to people to try to tell us what's the answer. Please give me like some kind of indicator about what is going to happen in the future because I can't stand this uncertainty. And then the final situation in the Parsha with the 3 cities of refuge has to do with the person who has the so-called accidental manslaughter case of somebody who, let's say they were chopping wood and the handle of the axe accidentally flew off the end and, God forbid, killed another person. And then a member of the murdered person's family is, in this ancient culture, obligated to go and seek revenge for their loved one who has been killed unintentionally. And so the person who committed manslaughter has a place to go and seek refuge so that they too won't get killed. And they're in this very limbo state. Their fate hasn't yet been decided, but the Torah seeks to find some way to protect them from wrongful, retributive murder. And then when we get to the Haftarah, I'll speak about that then, but that really is going to talk about a whole society in a state of limbo and uncertainty, and how in some way God is speaking to and through that society in those moments. So just keep that thread in mind as we go through this morning, and we'll talk more when we get to the Haftarah. Okay, invite Elaine to coming up as our Gabbai this morning, and we'll get started. So the Torah reading, the first Aliyah this morning, begins on page 1094.
V'yazor, v'yagen v'yoshia l'chol hachosim bo v'nomar amen. Hakol havu godel Eloheinu nuchavod laTorah ta'amod. Shena bat David. Ha'aliyah harishona, Baruch shenatan Torah le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. V'atem hadvekim b'Adonai Elohechem, chaim kulchem hayom.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'charanu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
וכי יבוא הלוי אחר שעריך מכל ישראל אשר הוגש שם ובוא בכל אבות נשהו אל המקום אשר אדוני ושרת בשם אדוני אלוהיו ככל אחד הלווים העומדים שם לפני אדוני חלק כחלק יאכלו לבד ממקור רעב
Avot.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam atah b'delchenu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Yashikah. I'll go stand by Rabbi Lauren.
Yashikoach.
Ya'amdu Zipporah bat Golda v'Hershalev v'Melech ben Avram Yaakov v'Masha ha'aliyah ha'shniyah.
Cheryl and Lenny are taking the second Aliyah via Zoom this morning, and so you will hear their voices in just a moment. Cheryl and Lenny, whenever you're ready to say the bracha, go ahead.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Okay, they said it. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki ata ba'al ha'aretz, asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach, lo tilmad la'asok, to'avot hagoyim ha'hem, lo yimatzeh v'cha, ma'avir bano uvito, ba'esh, kosamim, ganim, mionain, nakesh, kashev, bachover, chaver, v'shoel, v'yidoni, v'doresh, el hamitim, ki to'avot Adonai, kol osei eleh, uviglo hato'avot ha'eleh, Adonai Elohecha, Morishotam mipanecha, tamim tehiyeh im
Adonai Elohecha.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam atah b'delchenu. Baruch Atah Adonai HaTorah.
Amen. Yeshikoach. Yeshikoach. Cheryl and Lenny are celebrating their 35th wedding anniversary. And so even though we can't see them here in the room, let's sing to them. Can you imagine them smiling? Simen tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tovu, simen tovu, simen tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tovu, simen tovu, simen tovu, mazel tovu, mazel tovu, simen tovu, Eilanu, Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Udecho Yisrael. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, Udecha Yisrael. Mazel Tov.
Mood. Ya'ira bat. Baruch v'gila ha'aliyah ha'shlishit. The third aliyah continues with verse 14, page 1095.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki hagoyim ha'ela asher ata yoresh otam el me'onanim ve'el kesomim yisma'u ve'ata lochen natan lecha Adonai Elohecha na'vi mikirbecha me'echacha kamoni Yikam lecha Adonai Elohecha elav tishma'un kechol asher she'alta me'im Adonai Elohecha b'chorev b'yom hakahal lemor lo osef lishmoa et kol al ha'elohai Adonai ha'elohai v'et ha'esh Hagadola hazot lo er'eod v'lo amut vayomer Adonai Elai heitivu
Asher Tiberu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshikoach Emily.
Ya'amdu Baruch Gedaliah ben Lukusiel v'Sara bat Livo ha'aliyah ha'rivit. The fourth aliyah starts on verse 18, page 1096.
No, that's not
Is that Navi Akim right there?
It's Hanavi.
It's just Navi, I think. Navi. Right here.
Yeah,
right?
it's,
Navi Akim, right?
what?
Navi Akim right there.
Yeah, you're right, as usual.
Takes a village.
Okay, here you go.
Baruchu et Adonai Amborach.
Baruch Adonai Barach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Amborach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol amim venatan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
כמוך, ונתתי דברי בפיו, ידבר עליהם את כל אשר אצוונו, והיה האיש אשר לא ישמע אל דברי, אשר ידבר בשמי, אנוכי אדרוש מאמו, אך הנביא אשר יזיד לדבר דברי בשמי, אשר לא ציוויתיו לדבר, ואשר ידבר בשם אלוהים אחרים, ומת הנביא ההוא, וכי תאמר בלבבך, היכן נדע את הדבר אשר לא דיברו אדוני, אשר ידבר הנביא בשם אדוני, ולא יהיה הדבר, ולא יבוא הדבר אשר לא דברו אדוני, וזדון דיברו הנביא, לא תגור ממנו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת, בחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Yeah, I know where it is. That's good. It's at the paragraph break. Yeah. Thanks.
Ta'amud, Laila Bat, Shoshana v'Yochanan, Ha'aliyah ha'chamishit.
Before the fifth Aliyah, I just want to say Mazal Tov to Viviana and Sergio on your 17th anniversary. Mazal Tov, Simen Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simen Tov, Simen Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simen Tov, Simen Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Mazel Tovu, Simen Tov, Yelanu. Mazal Tov, many, many, many more years. Thank you. All right. And Lila, this is your first Aliyah to the actual Torah since your bat mitzvah, is that right? Yay! You had a Torah, you had a Sefer Torah at your bat mitzvah. No. Oh, so this is a moment.
Oh.
Kol hakavod. All right, so we'll
Show you the spot. You can use this. Touch the Torah.
Take the touch right here. And then have it.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ki yakrit Adonai Elohecha et hagoyim asher Adonai Elohecha noten lecha et atzam v'yar yirishtem v'yashavta v'arehem ובבתיהם שלוש ערים תבדיל לך בתוך ארצך אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך לרשתה, תכין לה הדרך ושילשת את גבולתך אשר ינחילך אדוני אלוהיך והיה לנו שמה קורצח וזה דבר רוצח אשר ינוס שמה בחיל אשר יקל את רעהו בבלדת והוא לא שונא לו מתמיל שלשם ואשר יבוא את רעהו ביער לכתוב עצים ונטהר ידו בגרזל לקראת העץ ונשל הבזל מן העץ ומסע את רעהו ומת הוא ינום סלחת הערים האלה וחי פן ירדוף גואל אדם אחרי הרוצח כי יחכם לבבו והשיגו כי ירבה עד הדרך והקיהו נפש ולא אין משפט מוות כי לא שונא הוא לא מתמיל שלשום על כן אנוכי מצווך האמור שלוש שרים תבטח לך.
Take it and touch right where my pointer is.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'hayei olam natan b'tohenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshar kochech. Thank you. Welcome back.
Ta'amud, Chana bat Shimon v'Sara ha'aliyah ha'shishit. We are on the 6th Aliyah, chapter 19, verse 8, page 98.
Begin with Shalom. Right here. The Imyachir.
Nice.
Brilliant. Not brilliant. You can read.
Yeah, that's it.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai hamborach li'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikal ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ve'im yarchiv Adonai Elohecha et gevulcha kasher nishpa lavotecha v'natan lecha et kol haaretz asher diber latet lavotecha ki tishmo et kol ha-mitzvah hazot לעשות Va'ahava et Adonai Elohecha v'lalechet devachav kol hayamim v'yisafat lecha od shalosh arim al hashalosh ha'ele v'lo yisafech dam naki b'kerev artzecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach nachala v'haya alecha damim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai naten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. Yasher koach.
I'm not sure. Do we have a seventh Aliyah? Or not yet?
No?
Oh, and one of our,
Oh,
I was going to ask if we had other recent B'nai Mitzvah kids who would
oh yeah.
come up for that.
Yeah, Levi and Zoe. Woo woo. They just passed their 1 year B'nai Mitzvah anniversary. Oh, it's today. I was thinking the Parsha. I was like, Parsha Ray last week, but today is the actual English calendar day. Woo! Love it. Amazing, amazing.
Ya'amdu, Levi Ben, what are your parents' Hebrew names?
They need an assist. What are their Hebrew names?
No, you're Hebrew. You're Ben Sarah Leah ve Mendel Tzvi ve Chaya Bat Sarah Leah ve, not short memory.
Oh, Mendel Tzvi.
Mendel Tzvi Ha'aliyah Shvit.
Before Levi and Zoe recite the blessings for the 6th Aliyah, we'll pause for just a moment for a prayer for all who are ill. And so I want to invite you, if you're praying for somebody this morning who's sick, to rise, and I'll come to you and ask you to share their name with me and with all of us. Misheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak veYaakov ve'imotenu Sariv Karecha v'Leah Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et hacholim. Sarah Badina, Dan Fletcher, Sissy Swords, and Eric Genser. Yitzchak ben Moshe, Basha Batsaras Dessa, Jerry Andes, Stanberg, Hannah Glicksman, Yitzchak ben Rivka, Amatzi ben Hadassah, Aviv Basha Batsara, Ashna Geta Barisha, Lisa Miriam Batliba, Harriet Plancer, Joan Panos, Ken Powell, Tanya Green. Tanyetta Pruitt, Mark Chaffee, Jerry Boschnick, Daisy Boschnick. David Elias. Eli ben Rachel. Harav Bracha, Bat Sarah, Zohar bat Harav Rachel, Yoshua ben Devorah.
good for you, Brian.
Cameron Austin, Ruvain, Gary Snyder, Michal Nachama Bat Rivka, Shevach Ben Yechezkel Levi Trefei Galea, Stephen Goldberg, Josh Liley, Amati Ben Hadassah Avraham, Harav Yosef Ben Gershon.
Thank you. Libby Malka,
Libby Malka Bar Chaya,
Aaron Peretz,
Aaron Peretz Ben Chanai,
Evan Ben Zahava Bracha,
Evan Ben Zahava Bracha,
Abraham Ben Rezel.
Avraham Ben Rezel.
Thank you.
HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleiham Lachzikam Ularabotam V'yishlach Lehem Mehira Refuah Shlima Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf B'toch Sha'ar HaCholim V'chazek Yididei HaOskim B'tzorcheihem Shabbat Him Hilizok Refuah Krova Lavo Asher Bagala Bisman Kariv V'nomar Amen. Refuah Shlema. May they all have a speedy healing.
Now she's going to show you the spot. Touch it with your talit.
So, this is one touch right where the pointer is.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vahed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'chiyeh ish sonei l'reichu ve'arav lo v'yakam alav ve'hikahu nafesh v'med v'nas el achat ha'rim ha'el v'shilchu ziknei ha'iro v'lakachu oto misham v'natanu oto biyad haga'al hadam v'amet lo tachos einecha alav be'ad dam hanaki miYisrael v'toch lach. So touch right here. Go.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher Koach.
Now go stand over by Rabbi Lauren.
We're celebrating a belated but much loved. Oh, stick around up here, Levi and Zoe. Stay. For all of our B'nai Mitzvah during COVID who didn't get to celebrate Kiddush lunch in the midst of community, and so afterwards there'll be a Kiddush in their honor. And I don't think you know this yet, but we're going to give you all a special Aliyah on Yom Kippur as well, so you'll be hearing more about that. But we're very proud of all of you for everything that you have endured to get to this point, and grateful for you for showing up today.
Please rise. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'yamad divrei chirutei v'yamlich malchutei.
B'chayechonu yomechon uchayetecho Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala ubizman kariv. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam u'lo me'amaya.
V'yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitramam, v'yinaseh, v'yithadar, v'yitale, v'yithalal, shemei dekudesham,
Brichu.
Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata,
Tushbechata v'nechemata damihiran b'yama.
v'yimeru.
Amen.
Ta'amud harav Lior Rivka bat Nicha v'Michael ha'aliyah ha'maftira.
So y'all can stick around up here just at the corner during this next aliyah. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvorach. Baruch Adonai hamvorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
V'hi ish sonei l'reichu ve'arav lo ve'kam alav ve'hikahu nafesh v'amet v'nas el achat hayrim ha'el ve'shilchu ziknei arov ולקחו אותו משם נתנו אותו ביד כל הדם ומת ולא תחוס עיניך עליו ובערות דם הנקי מישראל הטוב לך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Ya'amdu ha'magbia v'hagolelet.
Yasher koach.
Too bad I'm a lefty.
Oh no. Vizot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Ki hem chayenu ve'yorech yameinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla. Ki hem chayenu ve'yorech yameinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla. Ki hem chayenu ve'yorech yameinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla. Ki hem chayenu ve'yorech yameinu uvahem negei yomam v'layla. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Can I borrow your chumash? Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Tziva lanu Moshe. Shevet. So we're about to read from this Haftarah for Parshat Shoftim. And I think with the Haftarot, we're invited to engage with them with almost a totally different mind than we use to encounter Torah. You could do this with Torah too, but I find often when we go through Torah, we've got our analytical brains on, we're analyzing, we're looking for comparisons and contrasts and trying to figure out the meaning. But this Haftarah, like many others, is poetry. And it invites us into the realm of metaphor and imagery and especially because the trope are in this minor key, they almost take us into this like quasi-meditative state where many people, I'm sure, I'm not the only one to occasionally doze off during a haftarah. Maybe I'm the only one, I don't know. But they do kind of lull you into this sense of like, oh, it's very calm and it's very repetitive and almost like mantra-like. And so I want to point out just a couple of phrases in the theme of this haftarah that we're about to read and that I'll chant, and then kind of invite you to just like see what images come to mind and see what the poetry suggests to you as we're going through. So I'm just going to read these first couple of lines. I'm on page 1108 if you want to follow along. It starts out and it says, I am the one who comforts you. What ails you that you fear man who must die, mortals who fare like grass? This haftarah is addressed to a people who is betwixt and between. Their term of exile in Babylon has ended, but they haven't yet come home. And so they're in this really stuck in-between place, neither here nor there, and that is so uncomfortable for them. So throughout this haftarah, you hear all the emotions that we feel, I think, when we're stuck in that no longer here nor there place. You hear anxiety and dread. You hear this sense of aloneness and isolation. And there's an image toward the very end of chapter 51 that Jerusalem sort of imagined like a person is just like letting everybody walk all over her, has just become totally passive and resigned. Like, I cannot do it anymore. I'm just gonna like lay down in the dust and let everybody else trample me because I'm done, because I have no agency in this moment to move my life forward in the way that I want. And so then here, the character of God comes into this scene of anxiety and dread and uncertainty and in-betweenness, and doesn't say, here's the answer. I'm pointing you like, here's what to do now, which is probably what the speaker might have wanted or thought she wanted. But just says hineni, which is, this is one of those Hebrew words that is very difficult to translate into English with the force of the Hebrew. Hineni just means, I'm here. I'm here. I'm present with you in this moment. And sometimes when we're in the place of being the comforter, we think that our job is to have all the answers and fix the problems and tell everyone that it's going to be okay. But when we're in the place of the comforted, the person sort of feeling this anxiety, all we really want is for somebody to say, I'm in it with you. I'm here, hineni. I'm going to sit with you and be in it with you until it's done, however long it takes. If it's days, months, years, I'm here. I'm here. And so I think that is some of the wisdom that this haftarah is bringing, that I want to invite us to, whether we find ourselves in comforter or comforted roles at this moment, and invite you to imagine who you might be and how you might be able to either receive or provide that kind of presence. So I'll begin with the brachot on 175 and then the haftarah on 1108. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'neviim tovim, v'ratza v'divreihem hanemarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, abocher b'torah Moshe avdo, u'b'Yisrael amo, u'b'nbiei ha'emet v'hatzedek. Anochi, Anochi, hu menachemchem, miyad vatiri meino shiamut, ומבן אדם חציר יינתן, ותשכח אדוני עושך, נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ותפחד תמיד כל היום, מפני חמת המציג, כאשר כונן להשחית, ואיה חמת המציג. מהר צועד להיפתח, ולא ימות לשחת, ולא יחסר לחמו. ואנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, רוגע הים, ויהמוג עליו, אדוני צבאות שמו. ואשים דברי בפיך, ובצל ידי כיסיתיך, לנטוע שמיים ולסעוד ארץ, ולאמור לציון עמייתה. התעוררי, התעוררי, קומי ירושלים אשר שתית, מיד אדוני את כוס חמתו, את קובת כוס התרעלה, שתית מצית. אין מנהלה מכל בנים ילדה, ואין מחזיק בידה מכל בנים גדלה. שתיים הנה קרותייך, ומי יענו לך, השוד והשבר, והרעה והחרב, מי ינחמך. בנייך אלופו שוכבו בראש כל חוצות, כתוב מחמר, המלאים חמת אדוני גרת אלוהיך. לכן שמינה זאת אונייה, ושחורת ולא מיין. כה אמר אדונייך אדוני, ואלוהיך יריב עמו. הנה לקחתי מידך את כוס התרעלה, את קובת כוס חמתי, לא תוסיפי לשתות עוד. ושמתיה ביד מגוייך, אשר אמרו לנפשך, שכי ונעבורה, ותשימי כארץ גבך, וכחוץ לעוברים. אורי, אורי, לבשי עוזך ציון, לבשי בגדי תפארתך, ירושלים עיר הקודש, כי לא יוסיף יבוא בך עוד הרל וטמא. הנערי מעפר, קומי שבי ירושלים, התפתחי מוסרי צווארך, שבייה בת ציון. כי כה אמר אדוני חינם נחקרתם, ולא בכסף תגאלו. כי כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, מצרים ירד עמי בראשונה לגור שם, ואשור באפס אשקו. ואתה מליפו נאום אדוני, כי לוקח מחינם, משלה יהלילו נאום אדוני, ותמיד כל היום שמי מנועץ. לכן ידע מי שמי, לכן ביום ההוא, כי אני הוא המדבר, הנני. מה גבו על ההרים, רגלי מבשר, משמיע שלום, מבשר טוב, משמיע ישועה, אומר לציון מלאך אלוהיך. כל צופייך נשאו כל יחדיו, יחדיו ירננו, כי עין ועין יראו, בשוב אדוני ציון. פיצחו רננו יחדיו, חרבות ירושלים, כי ניחם אדוני עמוק על ירושלים. החשב אדוני את רוע קודשו לעיני כל גויים, וראו כל אפסי הארץ את ישועת אלוהינו. סורו, סורו, צאו משם, טמא אל תיגעו, צאו מתוכך חיברו, נושא כלי אדוני, כי לא בחיפזון תצאו, ובמנוסה לא תלכון, כי הולך לפניכם אדוני, ומאסיפכם אלוהי ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ונאמנים את דבריך, ודבר אחד מדבריך אחור לא ישוב ריקם, כי המלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. רחם על ציון כי בית חיינו, ולעלוות נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני משמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה ויבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. Baruch tiyeh, Baruch tiyeh. We'll turn now to a prayer for our country, a prayer for the state of Israel. This week marked in our country the release of the census. I don't know if people are following the census, but the census data was now released, dictating where our country's resources are going to go for this next decade and charting a course ahead. And we hope that our leaders and advisors are taking all of America into account as they plan ahead for the future. And this week, that was not meant in any way, that was just a general statement. And this week also marked the 1-year anniversary of the Abraham Accords, which we learned about a week and a half ago with our delegation from Sharaka, but the normalization of relations between Israel and the UAE, and then Bahrain, and Morocco, and Sudan, and please God, many other countries in the Middle East to come. And so we are praying, as we always do, for peace and wisdom to guide the countries that we love. Prayer for our country is on page 177.
Our God and God of our ancestors, with mercy accept our prayer on behalf of our country and its government. Pour out your blessings upon this land, upon its inhabitants, upon its leaders, its judges, officers, and officials, who faithfully devote themselves to the needs of the public. Help them understand the rules of justice you have decreed so that peace and security, happiness and freedom will never depart from our land.
Adonai God, whose spirit is in all creatures, we pray that your spirit be awakened within all the inhabitants of our land. Uproot from our hearts hatred and malice, jealousy and strife. Plant love and companionship, peace and friendship, among the many people and faiths who dwell in our nation. Grant us the knowledge to judge justly, the wisdom to act with compassion, and the understanding and courage to root out poverty from our land. May it be your will that our land be a blessing to all who dwell on earth, and may you cause all peoples to dwell in friendship and freedom. Speedily fulfill the vision of your prophets. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. For all of them, from the least of them to the greatest, shall know me. And let us say,
Amen. Amen, amen.
A prayer for the state of Israel. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim, stronghold and redeemer of the people of Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the beginning of our redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy, and let us say, Amen.
Amen. Amen. We'll rise as we put the Torah away on page 183. And our ark openers, we need you back. Okay. Are you opening the ark? Okay. Oh, you're carrying the Torah. Ark openers, unless there's somebody else. Hallelu et Shem Adonai ki niskav shemo levado horo la'eretz v'shamayim vayarem keren li'amo teila lechol chasidav livnei Yisrael am kirovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid, Havu l'Adonai b'nei Elim, Havu l'Adonai, Kavod v'Hosai, Havu l'Adonai, Kivod Shemo Ishtakavu l'Adonai b'Hadra Kodesh. Kol Adonai al hamayim el hakavod hirim Adonai hamayim rabim Kol Adonai b'koachai Kol Adonai b'hadar Kol Adonai shover Vaishaber Adonai et Arzi Alvanon Vayarkidem Kimo Egel Uvnucho Yomar Eitz Chaimi Lamar Chazikim Ba Tomcha meushar dirachecha dorchei noam v'chonetivotah shalom hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva chadesh yameinu kekedah. Yesher koach, thank you. So you can sit for just a moment. So I shared yesterday in an email that I sent out before Shabbat, teaching from the Talmud from Masachet Brachot, from page 29b. Rabbi Eliezer says, somebody who makes their prayer fixed, or keva, that kind of prayer is not what they call tachanunim, or it's translated in English as supplication, but I feel like that's really no better than the Hebrew. What is supplication? But when we hear somebody engaging in tachanunim, what that really means is like prayer from the heart, heartfelt prayer that's coming from your kishkas. It's like it feels real. And so there's this inherent tension between having this fixed liturgy that we say that's an anchor for us and trying to make it alive. And the rabbis are still sort of confused by this. They're like, okay, but tell me more. What is this tachanunim thing? I don't really know what this is. And so they give a couple of examples. And they say, Rabbi Yaakov ben Edi says that it means anybody whose prayer, or rather the opposite of tachanunim is, anybody whose prayer feels like a burden to them. Anyone who's just like, I just have to get through this so that I can get to Kiddush. That's the keva. That's like, I just can't wait to like put down this load so I can do the thing that I want to do. Nope, we've all said that. I'm first among you to say that. The next set of rabbis say, okay, what is this fixed prayer that doesn't look like tachanunim? It's when we are saying our prayer in this like standardized way that doesn't have emotion in it, that doesn't have feeling. And I've definitely been there too. And then finally, the final set of rabbis say it refers to anybody who is challenged to introduce something new, who wants to innovate in some way, but feels like, I don't even know what words to say. What words would I add of my own? Even if I knew what they were, how would I say them? And the rabbis sort of hold this up as a challenge to us to try to dig in when things get a little stuck and rote, and make some changes here and there so that it can feel alive again. And so I wanted to give our prayer a little bit more spacious this morning by not davening through a whole Musaf together. We will do that next week, so it's not going away permanently. This is just like a little experiment. I wanted to just read one poem and sing one excerpt of Musaf that we don't always get to sing, Yismachu. And really like do it with feeling. And so I'm going to read this poem that's on 188b by Ed Feld, and invite us to rise here if you're able, just to stand up and like maximize all the feeling into Yismechu. On this day of rest, the Holy Shabbat, you are my shadow, a shadow completely enveloping me. My body moves within your spirit. May it be your will that I gather your spirit within me so that you be my compass, pointing my way as my feet again touch ground and I move on. We'll join together on the top of page 189. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha, shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mikadashei, Mikadashei Shevi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbehu, Tangu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat. Ve'ashvi ratita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. Chemdat yamim, oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher lemase v'reishit Shabbat. Zecher lemase v'reishit Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu b'malechutecha. Shomerei, shomerei, shomerei Shabbat. V'korei oneg Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Mikadesh HaShabbat. I invite you to be seated, and we'll turn to page 204 for Ein Keloheinu. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kimakeinu, Ein Kimoshienu, non como vuestro Dios, non como vuestro Señor, non como vuestro Rey, non como vuestro Salvador. Mi Eloheinu, mi Kadoneinu, mi Kimakeinu, mi Moshienu, quien como vuestro Dios, quien como vuestro Señor, quien como vuestro Rey, quien como vuestro Salvador. No del Eloheinu, no del Adoneinu, no del Imakeinu, no del Moshienu. Lo oremos en vuestro Dios, lo oremos en vuestro Señor, lo oremos en vuestro Rey, lo oremos en vuestro Salvador. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Makeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Bendicho vuestro Dios, bendicho vuestro Señor, bendicho vuestro Rey, bendicho vuestro Salvador. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Makeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Tú amo vuestro Dios, tú amo vuestro Señor, tú amo vuestro Rey, tú amo vuestro Salvador. Yanai, nai, 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 yanai, nai, nai, yanai, nai, 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 nai, we rise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol l'tekedula liotzer bereshit shelo asanu kegoye haratzot v'lo samanu kemishpachot adama shelo sam chelkenu kahem v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam. Vanachnu korim ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד אמת מכנו אפס זולתו כך כתוב בתורתו וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. כך כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. You can be seated. This Shabbos, we're sending extra love and comfort to Beth and Jeff on the loss of Jeff's mom, Judy Feldstein. May her memory be for a blessing. And we're remembering the yard sites of Mitchell Barles, Ernestine Bloom, Elliot Dardick, Irene Deutsch, Marilyn Elican, Sydney S. Golden, Philip Jabin, Sam Kaufman, Miguel Palachi, Alan Hilton Price, Arnold James Schwimmer, Gerda Smith, Sarah Snyder, Joshua Stambler, Harry Turoff, Milka Ben-Zion, and Louis Israel Wachter. Yehi zichronam livracha. May all their memories be for a blessing. All who are saying Kaddish, I invite you to rise and join together on page 207. Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich machutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uchaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach le'elam ulamei amaya. Yitparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh V'tadar, v'tale, v'talal, shmei kodesha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'miran be'alma v'imru ameh. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru ameh. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei teva v'imru. Amen. 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 You may be seated. Good Shabbos. I'm going to finish before 5. Feeling very proud of myself.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's nice to see so many of you for our Welcome Back Shabbat, and especially like to welcome all of our B'nai Mitzvah families who, for the last year, many of you who had to do your B'nai Mitzvahs over Zoom. It's nice to have you back in person as part of the fabric of our community, and we hope to see you many more times coming up. Yes, big mazel tov. And the Kiddush is for all of you. In addition, just so you know, that we're ramping up into B'nai Mitzvah season starting next week and up through Sukkot. We have 9 B'nai Mitzvah at Or Hadash, so all of our Shabbatot will be really wonderful with all of the families who will be joining our community. This afternoon after Kiddush, for those of you who'd like to stay, there's going to be a wonderful Shir Hadash. It'll be a singing program with Rabbi Ariel Wolpe and Rabbi Lauren, who are going to be introducing some of the melodies of the high holidays. That'll be out in the courtyard after Kiddush. So if you're inspired by the music and want to have a little bit more to listen to or to sing, please join us. And tonight at 8 o'clock, there is a Havdalah for our new member families or anyone else who would just like to come. It'll be at 8 o'clock this evening. Tuesday, we're continuing with the learning sessions and introducing some of the elements from the new Machzor. That's on Tuesday night, and that'll be both in person and on Zoom. And as we are going to the high holidays, which is about 3 weeks away, y'all, it's coming up. A couple things just want everybody to be aware of. If you have not filled out a survey or have not emailed the office, we really need to know if you plan to come in person, as we are navigating and figuring out what the number of people are going to be who we're going to have in here for the services. We need to know if you would like to come in person. Obviously, everything will be on Zoom as well, so whatever is most comfortable for you, you can do a hybrid, but we just need to know because your name will need to be on a list. If you're going to come in person, we're not going to be just having walk-up, so please make sure you do that. We are also finalizing the B'Sefer Chaim booklet that we have for Yizkor. If anyone has a name of someone in their family that they would like to remember that haven't done it yet, please let us know this week as we are putting that to bed by the end of the week. And then just so that in case we've just put something together 2 weeks from now on a Sunday, we're going to have a drive-through, drive-up for a couple of reasons. If you would like to borrow Machzor, if you would like to purchase a Machzor, well, because we have a new Machzor this year, there will be an opportunity, if you don't come earlier, to come pick that up on that Sunday. It is also, we're having our food drive again for benefiting the CAC, or the Community Assistance Center. And so that's going to be open now, but you can come and bring your food contributions for that as our Tikkun Olam project. And with that, I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom.
The first time I've done this with challah, actual challah. It's great. Invite you to rise and turn to page 77 for Kiddush. Are there any B'nai Mitzvah that want to come join me up here for Kiddush? How about if you're feeling comfortable, come on. Who's going to be like the Nachshon? Yeah, come on up. Come back. Then you get first challah dibs. Okay, you can wander up. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו you drum ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו זברי. You can join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafe l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lachem min haaretz. Amen. Yanai nai nai nai, yanai nai nai nai, yanai nai nai nai, yanai nai nai, yanai nai 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 nai. We will be eating outside, so please keep masks on anytime you're in front of the buffet and find a table outside to eat. Shabbat.